Today I'm going to run you through the latest Obduction VR Touch update for the Oculus Rift. I'll give you reasons to why it is completely broken and whether you should update, wait or buy. Not a review I want to do because I love this game and the studio that made it, but it needs to be said and you need to know, especially if you're considering spending money on this game. So stay locked, crush that like button, enjoy, and I hope it helps.
What is currently happening YouTube? Facepalm here, your friend in Oz and NZ, bringing you reviews, tutorials and game clips, minus the You can follow me on Twitter at Facepalm with a 1, not an L. As for here on YouTube, if you like what you find, then like, comment and subscribe. Don't forget to bring your game face. Let's get it done.
So, just a quick spoiler alert here, I go into about the first 20 minutes of gameplay. So the first thing that I noticed with this update is that the virtual hands are much bigger than my hands, and I don't have tiny midget hands either. They were also not in the same place as my hands and seemed a few centimeters extended out from where my hands would actually be. The fingers are abnormally long, and this is me pointing my real life fingertips together. So yeah, not even close. Bending down, I couldn't quite touch the ground, which didn't bug me here because strangely my height felt correct in game, but I knew it would cause issues down the track if I had to pick something up off the ground. Teleportation is on by default, but you can change it to smooth locomotion and head turning, which I prefer. Though I do hate that when you are moving, whatever direction you are looking in, this is the direction you will move. It pisses me off in all games that do this, and that's because we don't move like this in real life. We look around at things while we walk in a straight line. I almost actually prefer teleportation to this style of movement, and I never quite get used to it. I couldn't clench a fist, or if I could, I couldn't figure out how to do it, and given I was holding touch controllers in real life, my hands are closed, kind of forming a fist, and to see open hands the whole time in game wasn't really believable. But that was okay, and I could kind of work with that. Grabbing an object seemed fine at first, and I did like that the virtual hands just disappeared here. However, trying to touch the object with another hand immediately swapped hands, and trying to grab a natural part of the object, like a handle, not only swapped hands, but glitched the object above my hands. Once I realized that using another hand swapped hands, it wasn't too bad, until all of a sudden the object was a mile away from where my hands actually were, which was quite jolting. And where previously the hand immersion wasn't quite there because of sizing issues, now the object immersion was completely gone. Then the movement glitching really started. Where hand and object immersion was gone before, now the environment immersion was starting to go too, and it was going fast. Pressing buttons in-game seemed fine, and as the hand was naturally in that shape, it seemed like the game just wanted me to walk around and press buttons. When I grabbed and pulled a lever, my real hand was way off where the virtual hand was. I did figure out that moving your real hand slowly to try and match the lever's tilting speed did help, and this was actually one of the times I did manage to get a fleeting glimpse of hand presence during this experience. As if the glitching wasn't bad enough getting to the house though, it was shit at the house as well. Grabbing a door handle snapped my virtual hand to an unnatural angle, and trying to grab things that weren't programmed to be grabbed resulted in that pointy finger, which just seemed stupid and felt like again, this whole touch update was designed for me to just walk around and press buttons. Waving my hands in front of my eyes gave a light delayed blurring effect, and trying to do something as simple as open the letterbox was a challenge, and I just got that unnatural hand snapping. Again, I would prefer the hand just went invisible when grabbing an object. Reading text in game is tough because of the resolution, which is a gripe with this game and VR in general. And now that holding up the letter had a jittering effect as well, this just compounded the problem. This is actually a complete step backwards from what the community has been asking for in regards to making text more legible in game. So yeah, not impressed. Standing still and looking around wasn't too bad, and this mechanical bee seemed to be quite clear. Again though, once I was moving, things started to stutter and glitch quite inconsistently. CW, who is the guy in the tank, was also now completely 2D and flat, instead of appearing in stereoscopic 3D like he was before this update. And given that the door has a lot of depth and looks like a real door, having a blatantly flat anything next to it just makes it seem even more flat, out of place, and ultimately fake. To be honest, it was at this point I was like, what the hell? Even the NPCs are worse. How do you even manage that? Turning a handle here again was way off, and you can see where my actual tracked hand comes from out of shot once the virtual hand lets go. That's how far out it was. Again, invisible hands would solve that problem during interaction. The turning speed using the analog sticks was inconsistent and went from slow to fast to slow again without any sort of reasoning. And it was most frustrating when trying to round a corner, as it felt like one of those bad dreams where you want to turn or run away from something, but you just can't do it fast enough. Or like you were trying to turn underwater one moment, then not underwater the next moment, then underwater again, then not, and so on. There are a lot of objects like buckets that you can't interact with, which is kind of fine, but it does seem unnatural to be able to move a giant iron handle but not tip over a little bucket on the ground. Turning a crank snapped my hand to the handle, upside down no less, and the hand rotated around with the crank, which was really killing my buzz, because it looks like your hand is actually snapped off and has been glued to the crank. Flipping switches has this rude snapping effect, which again looked like my hand had snapped off, and it really just made me feel like I was watching someone else's hands. Again, I would much prefer invisible hands here once you actually grabbed an object. At this point, I couldn't take any more after all the unrealistic hand interactions, flat NPCs, frustrating turning, glitch movement, and unreadable text. For hand presence after this update, I'd give it a 2 out of 10. I had only very fleeting moments of presence, and overall they didn't feel like my hands, and the whole thing felt extremely unnatural. When walking through the environment, I felt like the T-1000 in Terminator 2 running, and when holding the trigger down on the touch controller, I felt like E.T. trying to reach out and touch someone, or just blatantly pointing the blame. When using levers and interacting with objects, it felt like I was telling hands what to do and watching them carry out instructions. They weren't my hands, they were another entity's hands, and I was just watching them do shit. Lame. And for the overall post-update game experience, I'd also give it a 2 out of 10. I'm so sorry to say this because this is still one of my favorite VR games, and Cyan are just a bunch of legends in general. Their company could almost survive on reputation alone given their pedigree. But this was horrible. Actually, one of the worst updates I've ever seen from a game, console, system, or whatever. Just a terrible update overall. Not impressed. My advice, if you own Obduction and have been waiting for this update, wait for another update. And if you don't own Obduction and want to play it in VR, don't buy it now. Wait for another update. If you want to play Obduction on a normal flat screen, however, then buy it, because the game itself is still there and it's ridiculously good, but the VR implementation is completely broken, like worse than Arkham Knight broken. Bugger. And that's that. So if you like this video, then crush that like button, ask any questions in the comments below, subscribe if you want to see more content, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace!
Thanks for watching today's video. Just remember you can follow me on Twitter at facepalm with a 1, not an L. As for here on YouTube, if you like what you find, then like, comment, and subscribe. But don't forget to bring your game face. Facepalm out.